Good afternoon. Welcome and thank you for joining Sabanci Holding Building Materials Day. Before starting, I would like to remind you to review our disclaimer in the presentation. Today's speakers are Orhun Köstem, Chief Financial Officer at Sabanci Holding, and Burak Orhun, the President of Building Materials SBU at Sabanci Holding. There will be a Q&A session at the end. Now I am leaving the floor to Orhun Köstem, Chief Financial Officer at Sabanci Holding. Sir.
Thank you, Şule. Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our Building Materials Day. We're very happy to be with you today. My name is Orhun Köstem. I'm the Chief Financial Officer of Sabanci Holding. I assumed my position as of 1st of July this year, so I could be a relatively new face for some of you, even though we had our event at the end of the first quarter results. By way of quick introduction, I have about 28 years of work experience, mostly in fast-moving consumer goods sectors, brewing and Coca-Cola bottling businesses. We have invited today Burak Orhun, who actually is also a relatively new face potentially for some of you. He have assumed that position earlier this year. Now, and what we want to talk about is the building materials group of Sabanci. If you look at the share of net asset value in Sabanci, of the $3.4 billion of the net asset value of our listed companies, the building material group accounts for about 9% of that. If we exclude the portion of the bank, which is just under 40%, then the share of the building materials group is about 14%. If you look at the EBITDA contribution of the 6.7 billion TL of the non-bank EBITDA that's generated, about 9% is generated by the building materials group. Now, that's obviously until today, because I'm sure most of you must have followed, we have closed a very important acquisition earlier this year in July, the acquisition of the Buñol business, which obviously not only opens up new potential with new capacities, but also new business opportunities and a very different geographic footprint for us. So therefore, we wanted to take this opportunity today, A, to introduce ourselves and Burak, B, obviously to give an update on the Buñol acquisition, and of course, have Burak share his views about the direction of the business unit going forward in the new era. So therefore, today's discussion will not necessarily be about particular financial metrics of our companies or their operational performance, but more, hopefully, of a strategic discussion going forward. With that, I will leave the floor to Burak.
Thank you very much, Orhun, and good afternoon, everyone. Welcome you all to our Building Materials Day. Before going into business, maybe I'll just add a few sentences about myself as well, since I have taken over this role about 3 months ago. I joined the group actually about 3 years ago as Head of Strategy and Business Development. And before that, I used to work for Oyak Group, pretty much doing the same, Head of Strategy and Business Development, but also as executive management at various executive management positions at chemical and energy companies of Oyak Group. And before that, I was actually in the US working for a large consumer financing company at various management positions. As our CFO Orhun mentioned, we would like to use a different format today, and rather than looking into specific specific company financials, I would like to share with you where we want to take this business in the next 5 years, and where are we today, and how we want to transform this business. And before going into our future plans, though, let's have a look at where we are today. You're all familiar with it, actually. We are the leader in the Turkish cement market with about 14 million ton capacity, which means about 14% market share. And our share in Turkish cement exports is about 23%. under our SBU, we have in Turkey two companies, Akçansa, which is a 50-50 joint venture with Heidelberg, three factories under Akçansa in Istanbul, Çanakkale, and Samsun. And because of its location in Çanakkale, it's a highly export-focused business or company. It's about half of its volume is exported. Meanwhile, Çimsa is, we have 5 factories, about 7 million ton capacity. And besides gray, one of the, Çimsa is as you all know, is a major white cement player, complemented by a very strong network in Europe and a grinding station in US. And one overlooked feature of Çimsa is also that Çimsa is the only producer of calcium aluminate cement in Turkey, which is a very niche and high valued product. So in July, we had as also Orhun mentioned, we had a milestone for our SBU and in general for Sabancı Group. We completed the Buñol plant acquisition. As you all know, it took some time to actually complete that acquisition because we waited for the competition board applications to be completed also at various countries and across the world actually. And I guess the time it took for these institutions to analyze and give the approval for this acquisition shows the importance of this plant actually and the position of this plant in general in the white cement market. So we completed the acquisition on July 9th and along with this plant, we not only actually with this transaction acquired the plant, but we also acquired about 500K ton customer portfolio in Europe, in Latin America, and the rest of the world. We are talking about 110 employees we are now welcoming to our Sabancı family. And I mentioned about the customer competition board applications. In Spain, as part of the competition approval, we actually divested one of our terminals, Alicante terminal, as part of this transaction. So the Buñol plant acquisition not only shows is just a plant or customer portfolio acquisition, we also did a major reorganization under our SBU. As you can see on the right-hand side, we established a company in Netherlands, Çimsa Sabancı Cement BV, owned 60% by Sabancı and 40% by Çimsa, where we are now combining the financial strength of Sabancı and operational strength of Çimsa, and not only for the Buñol plant acquisition, but also for our future growth. Our intention is to utilize this company as a growth platform for all our future growth initiatives, which I will come to in a few minutes. I mentioned that we have also moved transferred the terminals in Europe and the grinding station in US under this growth platform to complete the picture. And one thing I want to mention here is the Buñol plant acquisition is actually the end result of a successful expansion strategy by Çimsa, which is we were producing white cement in Turkey. Afterwards, we actually expanded our footprint in Europe through very strategic locations, through terminals at very strategic locations, which brought us closer to the clients, closer to the market. We learned the customers, we learned the market, and which also gave us the opportunity to screen what's the best opportunity to become a regional manufacturer now, which showed us the Buñol plant. And we completed the picture or the value chain, so to speak, by acquiring Buñol plant and becoming a regional manufacturer there. So I wanted to underline that because this is the strategic, this is the expansion strategy we would like to mimic also for our future growth. If you can go to the next slide. Now, speaking of future growth, obviously we need to touch the global trends, especially the trends that are impacting our SBU, our building materials industry, basically. So, without going into too much details, we are actually categorizing the trends that are impacting us under four main pillars, let's call it. The first one is supply chain resiliency. You all know after COVID-19, the supply chain resiliency became a major issue for all players. That's including all the cement players and building material players as well. And becoming a regional player, not only relying on export, but becoming a regional player in various regions became a very important issue. The second one is green construction. So the construction companies are more and more moving towards using less labor, less energy, less water, let's say, during construction, and as such require eco-friendly construction materials and construction methodologies. The third one is sustainable buildings. So the society, as well as construction companies, are not only looking for a green construction, but also expect that the buildings are eco-friendly throughout the life cycle of the building, which actually increases the demand for insulation, water resistance, heat resistance, and basically energy efficient buildings. And the last one is because of the digitalization of all sectors, including construction, modular construction is becoming more and more the norm, especially in developed countries, whereby the construction companies are moving from on-site production to remote production, which increases demand for prefabricated materials and basically precast materials. So looking all these trends basically shows us two emerging key moves for us as well as actually for other building materials companies. The first one is geographic diversification. What it means is for us is growth in overseas operations and regional focus. The second one is product diversification. So not only actually for our end products, but also for our raw materials and the materials we use in the various process of the production, meaning fuel and alternative raw materials, but also on the end side, on the end production or end consumer side, adding other sustainable products besides cement to our portfolio, basically. If we move into if we want to explain our next 5-year strategy in just one slide, I guess this strategy house will summarize it the best. And what we want to do in the next 5 years is transform this business from a pure cement SBU, pure cement business, to a building materials group. B, we want to move from a local power with international expansion to a more what we call G-local building materials group. What it means is having local capabilities, regional capabilities in a global framework. And more importantly, we want to change our color from gray to green, in line with the Sabanci Holding's commitments to 2050 net zero target, basically. So under that vision, we have two main pillars. First, we want to, obviously, cement is our bread and butter, our main business. So we want to protect and grow our main business. To do that, we will, A, look at our network, especially with the addition of Albus. We have now 10 factories. We will focus on integration of Albus to our network and optimize our network, or our whole supply chain, for max value creation for our shareholders and for our stakeholders. Second, we are already the leader in the Western Hemisphere of the world in white cement, but we will strengthen our white cement, further strengthen our white cement position by light asset investments globally, meaning what we have done in Europe, strategic terminal locations, we want to replicate globally, basically, in various parts of the world, where we are to get, again, closer to our customers, closer to the markets, and in those markets, once we learn the market, the customers, know the customers directly, we will explore other value creation opportunities, such as maybe partnerships with various stakeholders, basically. When it comes to gray cement, we will more or less mimic actually the same strategy. Right now, we are a major exporter, but again, we would like to get closer to our customers, clients in the export markets through light assets investments, meaning terminals and warehouses, conversion warehouses, etc., which will lead ultimately to vertical integration, just like we have done with the Buñol plant acquisition, basically, at our export markets. Obviously, we will support that with by improving our trading capabilities, which means we will actually build a trading organization to support our business. Now, this is the cement side, but as mentioned, we would like to add other products, other building material products besides cement to our portfolio, for product diversification. And first of all, we will expand we are looking to expand our calcium aluminate business. As I mentioned, we are the only producer of calcium aluminate in Turkey, and we are one of the very few actual producers in the world. This is a niche market, a very profitable market, and in many countries, actually, calcium aluminate is categorized as a specialty building material rather than cement. So we will use that as a bridge to actually expand further into building materials and explore other adjacent segments in building materials. And we have done that already. And for example, precast concrete and insulation emerge as two interesting areas to explore for us in the near future. So before we, obviously, it's not, if you can go back one slide, the one thing I want to mention here is as we are growing our business internationally and as we are transforming also by expanding into building materials, we will support that with a global R&D center. We need to be close to the innovations, disruptive innovations, disruptions, both in building materials and cement, because the world is changing very quickly. And right now we have a very good R&D center in Turkey, but we want to move that to Europe or potential to US to actually become closer to the, as I mentioned, to innovations and disruptions. I mentioned about the building materials, going into further building materials. I'm not going to go too much into details, but as I mentioned, precast concrete and insulation caught our eye as potential expansion areas because it's really matching or it's really responding to all the global trends we are observing. Both are very fast expanding industries, expanding markets. And we believe there are synergies, not only with cement, but also with our other SBUs, such as energy SBU and industrials SBU. In fact, we are, with Kordsa, or from our industrial side, we are actually already in construction building materials through our Kratos product, which is concrete admixtures, basically. So if you can move one slide. So I mentioned we are sustainability, obviously, is a major theme for all of us, as well as for our sector, and for us. Sabanci Holding is committed to 2050 net zero emission target, and we will, as part of Sabanci Holding, we will be in line with that target, and we will do our best. We are committed to the same target as well. Right now, for us, we are taking various actions, such as being the waste solution provider, waste solution partner actually to Istanbul municipality, or more and more increased waste tire utilization. However, these are obviously first actions, but in beyond 2022, we will, together with all the cement sector across the world, we will take actions to decrease the clinker ratio, utilize more alternative raw materials, utilize more alternative fuel, which we will all in detail explain at our CO2 roadmap, which we are working on currently together with the industry, together with the Global Cement and Concrete Association, to actually decrease the CO2 emission of our SPU and of our sector in general, basically. One thing I want to mention is that in alternative fuel usage, we are already the leader in Turkey. The Turkey average is about 7%. As a Sabancı group, or Sabancı Building Materials SPU, we are at 15%. We know this is below European percentages, but the Buñol acquisition will also, there will be a know-how transfer from there as well to increase the alternative fuel usage here. So net, what is our vision? Where are we today? Where we want to take this business, as I mentioned. Today, by end of 2020, when we look at our numbers, about 55% of our revenues are FX-based. Not a bad number, but we want to increase that. About 5% of our revenues comes from international operations, meaning 95% either domestic sales or export from Turkey. We want to increase that. And 3% of our revenue come from non-cement, only 3% of our revenues come from non-cement businesses. That's mostly port operations. Post-Buñol, we are already in progress to increase these numbers. With Buñol acquisition, we have increased our FX-based revenue generation over 70%. And our revenue from international operation percentage increased to 15%. But that's not enough, obviously. We want to further increase that. And in the future, we want to be at a much higher FX-based revenue generation ratio. We want to share. We want much higher share of our revenues come from international operations, and we would like to diversify our portfolio where we a good amount of our revenue comes from non-cement businesses, but mostly from sustainable building solutions, basically. And that's it, I guess, for our vision, for our future plans. As I mentioned, we didn't want to really go into company-specific numbers, but explain to our friends where we want to take this business. I guess we are ready to take any questions, if there are any. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Burak Bey. We can begin Q&A session. Please submit your questions. Yes, now we have the first question from Cemal Demirtaş. What do you think about energy trends, recent increases in coal, oil, and natural gas? Are you worried about cost at all? Thanks.
Yeah, I guess I will be lying if I said no, I'm not worried. Of course, we are all worried, and all sectors, but this is a global phenomenon. This is not only Sabanci SPU worry or just Turkish players' concern. Obviously, we are at the up cycle of all commodities. Coal prices since the ending of last year has gone up about 40%. Petcoke has gone about 90%, and energy prices in Turkey has gone up about 25%, is expected to go further. And we are doing our best to actually accommodate those prices and not to reflect on prices as much as possible. But at the end of the day, we have to take the necessary actions, obviously, to live with these prices as well, with these increased prices as well. However, this is a cycle. We are at the up part of the cycle, and in the midterm, we expect that the energy as well as commodity prices in general, coal, petcoke, etc., to normalize and get back to normal levels, basically.
Next question from Hanzade Kılıçkıran. Thank you for the presentation. Can you please share more information on Buñol acquisition and its potential financial impact on Çimsa?
I see a different question here, but can you repeat the question? Because
Yep.
I see a different question here.
It is another question.
Okay.
Burak Bey, can you please share more information on Buñol acquisition and its potential financial impact on Çimsa?
Okay. So further information, I guess we already made public that we have acquired the Buñol plant for 155.2 million euros. The acquisition dollars. I'm sorry. The acquisition was funded 40% equity and 60% debt, long-term debt with very good rates, I might add. And the acquisition, as you have seen in the structure, and the equity structure was divided by 60% Sabancı Holding and 40% Çimsa. So net, we are for Sabancı SBU, the contribution of Buñol plant, we expect that the EBITDA impact will be around 10 to 15% in the short term, meaning our SBU, total SBU EBITDA will increase about 10 to 15%. But in the medium term, as we realize the synergies through network optimization and through the whole value chain, we expect that contribution to go up to 20%. And I guess that's good information for now.
Thank you. Next question is from an anonymous attendee. Hi, thank you for the insightful presentation. Should we expect the shareholder structure in Çimsa international operations to be maintained in the future?
Sure. As I mentioned, this Çimsa Sabancı Cement BV, we have constructed this structure not only for Buñol plant, but to fund the future growth of SBU in general, basically, and use it as a future growth platform. If the intention there was to utilize the financial strength and financial magnitude, obviously, of Sabancı Group, Sabancı Holding, but benefiting also Çimsa from the value created there by not putting too much burden on Çimsa balance sheet. And as such, for the growth period, we are expecting this structure to remain the same because there will be funding needs, obviously, to grow. And Sabancı will continue to support this funding, which will benefit Çimsa and Sabancı mutually, obviously. But after the growth, after 5 years, in the next second 5-year plan, we will look at the structure again and find the most optimum structure for all stakeholders, basically. But for now, for the near-term future, yes, this structure will remain the same.
If I may add to that, I think that's a great question, because you heard from the business unit perspective, from Sabancı perspective, obviously, I hope you have seen what you heard today fits very much in line with our long-term expectations, meaning as we grow our businesses in Turkey, make sure that we generate more business on FX base, more revenues from international, invest in new parts or new economies adjacent to our existing know-how base. So the business unit, the building materials unit, as Burak has explained, fits into this. Moreover, it also, I think, represents, as Burak explained, our ambition to ensure that we create momentum into our businesses that could grow in the right strategic directions. And going forward, obviously, we will seeking alternatives to ensure we generate maximum returns from a Sabancı Holding portfolio perspective. Thank you.
Thank you. Next question. Can we have some words related to Kordsa's construction enhancement business, specifically about the growth opportunities of construction enhancement business? Thanks.
Sure. Obviously, this is the industrials SBU, but there's a major overlap there. We believe this is a very, very important business with a very high growth opportunity, actually. And we are actually cooperating together, working together with industrials SBU to further grow that business. Since we are selling cement and concrete, and they are building concrete admixtures, and concrete admixtures and the enhancement business is we are basically selling to the same customers. As such, there's a major synergy we can actually create by growing that Kratos business as well. So net, we see in the medium term, we see a major growth opportunity there for Sabancı Group from that for Kordsa's construction enhancement business.
Thank you. Next question from Cenk Orcan. How do you expect growing share of international operations will impact building materials segment margins in the medium to long term?
Overall, I should say, positively impacting the margin because international operational growth, as I mentioned, will not be only on just one segment. We are talking about gray, white, and other building materials. Building materials that are, in some instances, higher margins than cement. But as I explained, some of our international growth will come from white cement, which has a larger margin than gray anyway. So as we are mixing or as we are shifting the mix towards, right now, a big portion of our portfolio is gray, there is white, and then no other building materials. But as we are shifting the mix, we expect positive impact on our margin as well.
Next question from Sadrettin Bağcı. Thanks for the presentation. Do you foresee any capacity shortage in case Channel Istanbul projects take off? Thank you.
Not necessarily. We believe there is enough capacity actually in this region, Marmara region, to support both the ongoing consumption as well as the Channel Istanbul project. Obviously, Channel Istanbul is not just 1 year consumption. We are talking about a 5 to 10 years project, which will require cement gradually over the years. So we don't see any problems necessarily in terms of capacity for that region.
Thank you. Next question. Does Sabancı Cement Group have any plans on growing in U.S. markets, organic or inorganic?
Yes, U.S. is part of our plans as well. As I mentioned, we would like to get closer to our clients at our export markets. And as such, U.S. is already a market where we are exporting. In fact, we have a grinding station in U.S. And the importance of U.S. is obvious because of the very recently approved infrastructure plan. There will be a big major growth in cement demand over the next 5 years. And yes, U.S. is on our scope as well when we are looking at investment opportunities, both organic and inorganic.
Next question is from Shashank Lanka, Bank of America. Hi, thanks for the presentation and the opportunity to ask questions. Can you give some color on carbon footprint in terms of emissions from Buñol plant versus your overall building materials SBU currently? Also, can you talk about EBITDA margin profile of the Buñol plant versus the current SBU EBITDA margins?
Sure. Compared to our current factories in Turkey, Buñol plant has higher alternative fuel usage. As such, the emission rates are better compared to our current plants in Turkey. That's why the know-how transfer is very important for us. So this is not only a financial investment or strategic investment in a way, but from carbon footprint perspective, there's a good amount of learnings we will actually transfer from Buñol to our other factories as well. And the second part is, yes, the Buñol EBITDA margin is better than our current SBU overall SBU EBITDA margin, mainly because Buñol is 100% white. And white cement has better and higher EBITDA margins than gray cement. And as such, our current SBU without Buñol, because our current SBU is a mix of gray and white, Buñol in itself has a higher margin. B, adding Buñol will slightly increase our overall SBU margin as well, EBITDA margin as well, because of the mix.
Thank you. The next question is from Özgür Tanrıverdi. What is your expectations regarding your non-cement products in the future? Do you think that they can help you improve your FX-based revenues and margins significantly? Could you elaborate a little more about their contributions to growth and margins in the future?
Sure. So non-cement products, when we are looking at growing in non-cement business or going into adjacent building material segments, We are mostly looking to do that outside of Turkey, in advanced markets, in Europe or in the US, because that's where the growth is. So we want to follow the growth, actually, growth for these segments. And as such, it will positively impact our FX-based revenue generation, as well as margin impact, actually, because we will be looking for opportunities that will be value accretive, meaning higher margins, higher profitability than our current SBU, basically. These segments usually have either the same or better margins than cement business overall, but their cash conversion cycles are better. So their cash generations are, in many cases, actually better than cement business. As such, growing in those segments, in non-cement, other building material segments, will have a positive impact overall on the profitability and margins of the portfolio.
Thank you. And the final question is it possible that Çimsa sells some of its gray cement assets to reach strategic targets and to fund the transformation?
First of all, we don't need to sell target or assets, gray cement assets, to reach our targets or to fund the growth, because as I mentioned, we have built that structure to utilize the financial strength of Sabanci Group. But overall, just like Sabanci Group itself, within the Sabanci Building Materials SBU Group, we are running a dynamic portfolio. Dynamic portfolio management is very important for us, and we are constantly looking for network optimization and value maximization through optimization. And that's an assessment we are continuously making, and we will continue to do so, basically, in the future as well.
Thank you. There is no more question. We can close. Thank you for joining Sabancı Holding Building Materials Day. If you have any follow-ups, please contact Investor Relations team.